All right, let's dive right in. We're going to talk about something that, every single researcher worries about. How do you make sure your work actually gets read? Today, we're breaking down the three most important parts of your paper's first impression. That's the title, the abstract, and the introduction. If you get these right, you're opening the door. But if you get them wrong, well, your brilliant work might just get lost in the shuffle. I mean, really think about that for a second. You have poured months, maybe even years of your life into this research. It could be a total game changer. But let's be real, we're all drowning in a sea of new publications. So how do you possibly cut through all that noise? It all boils down to that very first impression. So first up, the title. I want you to think of this as your paper's movie poster. Seriously, it's the very first thing anyone sees, and it has one and only one job: to be so interesting that people just have to know more. It's the single most important piece of advertising for your work. And just look at the difference here. On the left, you've got this title that's, well, it's long, it's packed with jargon, and it's all about the methodology. Honestly, it's pretty forgettable. But the one on the right? Wow, that's powerful. It's specific. It uses keywords people are actually searching for, like deep learning and skin cancer, and it tells you the benefit right away. That's the title that gets the click every single time. So how do you write a title like that? Well, you can start by following these golden rules. Try to keep it concise, right? Under 20 words is a fantastic target. And please, start with your subject, not your method, because that's what your reader is looking for. Use simple, searchable language. And for goodness sake, ditch any weird abbreviations or punctuation that are just going to trip people up. And hey, don't think for a second this is just about style. This is a real comment from a journal reviewer. A weak title isn't just a missed opportunity, it can be a genuine roadblock to getting published. Getting this right from the very beginning is, well, it's non-negotiable. Okay, next up is the abstract. So if the title is the movie poster, then the abstract is the trailer. It's that short, punchy summary that gives the reader the entire story in a nutshell and convinces them that your paper is absolutely worth their valuable time. And when I say short, I really, really mean it. Most journals are super strict about this. They give you a word limit, usually somewhere around 250 to 300 words. That is not a lot of space to work with, which means every single word has to count. And this, right here, is the core principle of a fantastic abstract. There is absolutely no room for fluff, no vague background info. Every sentence has to communicate something essential about your study: the problem, your method, the results, and the conclusion. It's all about packing in the maximum amount of information into the minimum amount of space. Now, you should know, not all abstracts are created equal. You've got a few different flavors depending on your field. The informative abstract is definitely the most common. It gives you the whole story in one paragraph. But for something like a clinical study, you'll often see structured abstracts with those nice, clear headings. And for really data-heavy papers, a graphical abstract can be a total game changer. The key takeaway here? Always check the guidelines for the journal you're submitting to. And this is exactly why the abstract is so much more than a simple summary. It is a powerful tool for discoverability. Think about it. Search engines like PubMed and Google Scholar, they index your abstract. So the keywords you choose here are absolutely critical for getting your paper found. Plus, it respects the reader's time by putting your most important results right up front. Okay, so you've hooked them with a great title and a compelling abstract. Awesome. Now it's time for the introduction. This is the opening scene of your research story. Your job here is to set the stage, clearly establish the problem, and position your work as the hero, the solution. You know, the best introductions almost always follow a logical flow, kind of like this 4-paragraph structure. You start broad by defining the problem and why it even matters. Then you briefly touch on what the field already knows. The third step, and this one's crucial, is to pinpoint the gap, that one unanswered question. And finally, boom, you introduce your paper as the solution that fills that specific gap. It's like a narrative funnel, leading the reader directly to your unique contribution. This is a perfect example of a strong opening hook. Notice what it's not doing? It's not starting with the entire history of artificial intelligence. Nope. It jumps straight to a current, really relevant problem. It immediately tells the reader why this research matters, right here, right now. Here's another fantastic one. It kicks off with a widely accepted fact, that rainfall is getting more intense. And then it immediately pivots to the knowledge gap. We don't fully get why. This creates this sense of tension and curiosity, and it makes the reader want to find out how your research is going to solve this mystery. And here's a quick but super important tip on style. Use the active voice. Saying a review was conducted is just so passive and weak. But we address the gaps? Now that's active, it's confident, and it shows you're taking ownership of the work. It makes your contribution completely impossible to miss. So we've looked at the title, the abstract, and the introduction one by one. But what are the core principles that tie them all together? Let's try to distill this all down to what really matters for getting your hard work read. At the end of the day, it really all comes down to these 3 C's. First, clarity. Is your writing easy to understand? Second, conciseness. Does every single word earn its place? And maybe most importantly, contribution. Is the novelty, the newness of your work obvious from the very first sentence? If you can nail these 3 things, you are setting your paper up for success. Remember, your research is a story. It's a story about a problem, a search for answers, and an important discovery. By mastering these first impressions, you're not just writing a paper, you're making sure that your story actually finds its audience. You've already done the hard work. Now, go make sure it gets heard.